All right, we are back for break. Hello, viewer slash listener. Welcome to Break, the Fallthrough After Show. This is Break for Fallthrough episode number 49. Man, I can't believe it's almost been a year. It's kind of crazy. I'm here with Matt, and we're just gonna hop into it. So yeah, Matt, how are you feeling?
Good. It is kind of wild how it's almost been a year and how people keep listening to us. No, I mean, we've gotten some good feedback on the podcast overall, which is great. I mean, it's interesting because obviously this is not like, it's not my full-time job, obviously, right? I work at Oxide. I have the chocolate shop, so if I were not at Oxide or whatever, I'd be doing much more. But like, it's just interesting how just getting on and recording things, and you just start conversations and people have a good time, and we have good engagement in Zulip and Slack, and I don't know. I like it. I enjoy it. And
Yeah.
I was listening. I keep dropping Legos on the floor. I'm sorry. I'm fidgeting. I built some Lego things the other day, and I was listening to, I think, Oxide and Friends, and then it ended, and then Spotify like automatically played an episode of Fallthrough, and then I was listening to Fallthrough, and I was like, wow, we actually do a pretty good job. Like I listened to it from like just not first principle, because obviously I was on the episode, but I listened to it and I was like, wow, like I'd listen to this. You know what I mean? Like I just had that sort of moment where, because I don't really listen to a lot of our episodes, not because I don't like what we ship, but because I'm there. And I don't often have to go re-listen to have the conversation. But this one I did, and I was like, damn, like I'm not sitting here saying we're the best podcast ever, but I was just like, wow, like I like the content. I think we're doing a pretty good job. And you know, I was happy with that.
I feel like we do. We tend to talk about. I don't know. I feel like we talk about things that other people don't necessarily talk about, or we talk about them in ways that other people don't really talk about that, which I like. I like that a lot. I like that about what we're doing here, where it's like, I don't know, we're not just recapping things. We're like trying to have deeper discussions about stuff.
Yeah,
which is nice. Like I because I was sick last week, I like didn't ship the episode for this week until basically this morning. So I am like super interested to see what people's reaction is going to be to the whole lib ghosty like monologue thing. I don't remember what we thought of calling that segment, but like that whole type of segment where you just kind of do like an explainer monologue.
Yeah.
So like when I actually like figured out how that would work, I was like, okay, this is really cool. Like we should have stuff like this. Like I want to see us moving more and more rapidly in the terminal, because the terminal is this like really robust, nice environment to be in. Mostly because I don't have to use a freaking mouse. God, like that's like the one thing that will keep me from moving to like a GUI based IDE is like I don't want to have to touch my mouse or my trackpad really when I'm in my editor. I want to keep my hands on the keyboard. I just want to keep like moving. That's what I want. Having to move my hands is annoying.
I have two things to respond to that. One is someone actually is starting to build some multiplexer or session thing for the terminal using libghosty as the backing thing. I think it was someone from AMP or SourceGraph, but now SourceGraph and AMP kind of split now. There's two companies now. They kind of split. SourceGraph split AMP off into a different company. But yeah, so it's a reason why I'm saying this is because it's one of the first use cases outside of Ghosty that I'm seeing people use libghosty for, and that's cool. Like I love to see that. So hopefully that moves us into a good future.
Mitchell tweet about a project that uses libghosty for like whatever, like the Xterm JS or whatever it is.
Yeah, it was
like
that
extra like compatible thing that you can like, oh, you can put this in a browser now, and like it's real cool to see this actually like people using it and running it. And I'm like, oh, it is. It's a real nice thing you built. It's like you built the SQLite of terminal emulators. Like, people will use a whole bunch of different types of databases, but like, SQLite is definitely the most used one in the world. And it's like, I hope libghosty becomes like, excuse me. I hope libghosty becomes the most used terminal emulation library in the world, because it is like, it's something that like only gets created because of Mitchell and who he is and the position that he's in. right? Like in a different set of circumstances, like he might not have been able to build this, but given his circumstances, he's like, yeah, no, this is something I can just build, and so he did it. Nice. It's nice when that sort of thing happens.
No, yeah, it's some of that socialist aspect, right? Of like he's not doing it for the benefit of himself, right? He's doing it for the benefit of the whole like industry, and he's the one taking the hit, so to speak, right? He's paying real money to have this go, and he's funding it for himself, and he's spending his time on it. Like he's taking the hit for the greater good, and he's not charging anyone for it. So it's like it's cool to see that, and you only really get that. Obviously, he's well financed and taken care of now, right? He's at a point in his career and his life where he does not need to work anymore. So like,
Right.
obviously, he has the privilege of being able to do that. Putting all that aside, we all know this, but like he didn't start there. You know what I mean? Like he didn't start there. He worked up and he was able to do that. And I love that. And I wish more people would think about that stuff, you know? Like, I don't know. I feel the same way about my YouTube videos that I put out. I don't want to monetize my audience like that, you know, to the point where like everything is, you know, clickbaity content to optimize review. I don't want to do that. It's so disrespectful to my viewers. You know, I want to give them something that they care about and that they want to listen to and whatever. And sure, that means I won't make much money off of this stuff, but like at least I could be proud of the stuff I'm putting out there, you know? It's like whatever.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say to you is, yeah, keyboards, amazing. Like shortcuts. That was one thing about going back to linear for a second. That was one thing about, and I keep dropping my damn Legos everywhere. You should just kick me off the podcast. I just fidget too much at this point. I don't know why you have me here. That was one thing about linear that I enjoyed. Very good keyboard shortcuts to just move around the UI and manage issues and add things to projects and labels and this and that, and just very Vim-like bindings, and it was just great. So as someone like me who wants to kind of get the team together and go through our issues and go through projects, I could just, you know, hit the, I hope that little mouth sound came through on the mic. I could just hit the keyboard and just like go bada boom, bada bing, right? And I like it. So
gotta go bing bong. Yeah, no, it's
bing bong. There you go. I'll give you sound bites. You want sound bites? I'll give you sound bites for days.
Oh my god. No, I think like having good keyboard integrations, like you know, everybody who works in like a medical office or a hospital that uses like, you know, Epic, which is like a electronic health record system. Every time I talk to them, like the one thing they're always like, there's so much clicking. There's so much click. You have to do like 1,000 clicks to like send a prescription somewhere. And it's like, this is so obnoxious. And I wish like people had better interfaces for things, because it's just, and the same thing with like some POS systems too. There's a lot of clicking and a lot of like, I was thinking about this sort of thing when I was like hanging out at a coffee shop a lot. And I was like, you know, I don't really know. Maybe you can probably set up Toast or some of these other ones like this. But it kind of feels like if you have something that's like an order where people can say the things you want in different orders. Like if you're like, oh, you know, I want like a latte with vanilla and large and this. Like there's so many different ways you can rearrange those words to say them. If like the actual interface you had can have you start with any of the words and then flow through to the other ones, right? If someone starts with saying vanilla, you're like, oh, I can hit vanilla. And then it goes to, well, here are all of the things that have vanilla in them. And so it's more like a tree or walking that like you can get to multiple, or more like a graph instead of like a tree, right? So it's like you don't have to start with, okay, you want a vanilla, and you have to like the person at the cash register has to like cash that for a moment. Vanilla what? Okay, I want a latte. Okay, hot or cold? Okay, you want a hot? Okay, so I got to click this button and then this button and then this button. Like, so it's like, I feel like we could design better interfaces if we thought more deeply about like how more people are going to move through it, and like what type of person is going to want to move through this interface, where it's like, is it someone that just is going to hear something and want to spit it into the machine, or is it like someone that's going to want to think about something and then click it, or like know exactly where they want to go, or someone that's sitting like with a keyboard and is going to want to navigate via keyboard instead of clicking or touching or whatever. Yeah, we definitely need to beef up our user interface designs overall.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about this with Benji on an episode, because we're going to talk all about this sort of design, interface, branding. I think that's probably going to, viewer or listener, That's probably going to be a pretty long episode if I can convince Benji to stay on with us for a while, which I think I can.
3 hour.
Yeah.
episode.
No, we might actually just do an episode,
A
like
marathon.
like a feature film. Yeah. Part 1 and part 2 in the same day.
It'll just prepare our audience for the 6-hour episode we're going to have with Brian Cantrell. So
Yeah. But like, yeah, have you ever watched someone use their like tools in such proficiency, and you would be like, oh wow, like you did that faster than I would do with a better tool. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's the same thing. Like when you have a well-designed interface for how you interact with whatever you're doing, nothing beats that. You know, and I'm not sitting here saying that keyboards are the best and we all have to use keyboards and the mouse pointer sucks. I'm not saying that. But if it takes me 3 clicks to change an issue's status or something, right? From in progress to done or something versus hitting 2 keys, then I'm faster every day on the keyboard. You know what I mean? And I can go process many issues in parallel, or not parallel, you know, many issues one after another very fast versus having to click and click and click. So it's like, yeah, well thought out interface makes sense. It's, I don't know, go watch a YouTube video on someone filleting a fish and you'll see how fast these people can work. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Oh man, I just something just popped into my head. I don't even know why, but you know what it was? I was thinking about like navigating around like a browser with only the keyboard. And then I was just like, oh yeah, it'd be nice if you could have that like a web browser like in the terminal that was like a full web browser. And I'm like, yeah, but what happens if you like want to play a video? Then you got to do some weird thing. And I'm like, wait, no. It's the modern day. You could actually just flat out play a whole ass video in the terminal and it'd be fine. And I'm like, if libghosty can achieve what it wants to achieve, the idea of a terminal-based browser becomes so much more terminal-based web browser becomes so much more interesting and appealing.
You remember, was it Lynx or Link?
Lynx. Yeah. It's if you had something that was like basically like Chromium or WebKit, but just like in the terminal, that would be so awesome. We could actually like render web pages as web pages, but navigate around with like the keyboard, or I don't know what that would really look like, but yeah, that could be really baller. Like imagine just watching YouTube in a terminal.
Yeah, I could actually imagine that.
Yeah.
Like, please, that'd be cool. And then my React server component vulnerability can execute directly in my terminal, and it'll be fine. Like, well, there's no problems here. This is great. This is a perfect future. No, I'm just messing. But no, that would be cool, right? I mean, there is an element of minimalism there. Like, the browser does not need to be a GUI application, right? Like, we're just drawing pixels in a window. Terminals have a window, right? They have a place of drawing pixels to the screen, essentially. So why not in the terminal, right? Like, and then you could argue that a terminal emulator is a GUI app in itself, so technically it's still GUI to GUI. Like, you can get into this sort of nuance, but I don't know. That would be pretty cool. I would like to see that.
Yeah,
you know,
there's just so many like cool, like I don't know what it is about terminal UIs, but they feel so much more efficient. And I don't know if it's because you have to like think through better how you make it work, or because you basically know that someone has a keyboard. And that opens up a way of interacting with the user interface that like isn't necessarily the primary or priority thought when you're building like a regular GUI.
Right. This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. Yeah, I would like to talk more about that stuff. Yeah, this is fascinating how, like, what's weird to me is that we all kind of, maybe be careful with my words here. You see my Lego puller? I was playing with Legos. What's weird to me is we very quickly, I'm going to phrase this very specifically, we very quickly standardize on similar interfaces for things across companies and things. And that's not often the best thing to do, right? And like, for example, obviously something like a door, we're all standardized. Like, doors work one way. They're very simple interfaces. That's how we interface with the door. It might have a knob, it might have a handle, it might be push pull. It doesn't matter. We do the thing. But like checkout screens, right? POS systems, menus in restaurants. Like we standardize kind of blindly sometimes on these interfaces without really thinking of, is this the right interface for what I'm doing?
Right.
And you just happen to use it because like, oh, other businesses of my shape and stature do this, so that's what I'll do. And yes, there's something to be said for consistency. When a customer walks into a sandwich shop, they probably want to see like the ingredients lined up so they can pick their ingredients and make a sandwich. But like, you got to break away from some things too as you learn, and we just don't. We just don't do that. We just continue to use the same subpar interfaces. And then when someone comes along and says, actually, you know what? You don't have to do it this way. We can do it a different way. Instead of going to Blockbuster to get your DVD rentals, I'm going to ship you the rentals via the mail.
Right.
And it's like, whoa, it's mind blowing. It's like, well, it's not mind blowing. It's just they stopped listening to the bullshit. You know what I mean? Like they tried something new. It's not mind blowing. They were just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do this way instead and not listen to the critics.
And then instead of shipping them to you by the mail, I'm gonna ship them to you via the internet.
Yeah. And it's like,
whoa.
We should be encouraged to step away from these design elements more. And I'm sure when we talk to Benji next week or whenever it's going to be, we'll have more to discuss on the design aspect of this. But even just not in design, just in general use, like we don't have to organize our rooms the same way. Like you can do whatever you want. You can do things that work for you. Don't just fold to whatever else everyone else is doing.
I think so much of it too is like constrained by like, I think our skill level, but also like what's available. Like I'm like starting to learn how to do woodworking, and I'm like looking around my apartment. I'm like, oh my God, there's so many things I would have done differently if I was like a proficient woodworker, but also like had a workshop. Like I have a sideboard, and like I like my sideboard, but like before I bought it, I was considering like maybe I'll just make a sideboard out of like floor cabinets on casters and like some sort of like granite countertop or something on top, and then I can like rearrange it and move it and have it, do what I want. And I was just kind of like, that's like a lot of work, and I don't know if I have the skill level to actually pull that thing off. But I'm kind of looking at my sideboard, and I'm like, I wonder if I can like build my sideboard up to be like a better thing, to give me some more storage, make it look better and more cohesive. And it's like, oh wait, now I actually like have the both workshop space and like the knowledge to start trying to figure out like, okay, yeah, I do think I could build this sort of thing. And it would make my space feel much more cohesive, being able to do that. And I think that happens with like a lot of stuff, where it's like, if you just have these smaller or lower level skills, you can do stuff that you couldn't do before. That's absolutely how I felt like when I first started learning how to program. Like computers went from these things that you're constantly trying to figure out, like, how do I get some program that does this thing that I want, to all of a sudden being like, oh, I can just write a shell script that does that thing that I want. Or I can write a little PHP script or Go script or Python or Ruby, whatever. I can write a little application that does precisely what I want to do. And once you have the ability to do that, like you have so much more power to do things than you could before. Like I've talked about the workflow for this podcast, and ever like since I started like leaning more into using, AI coding assistants, like having the ability, like there was a bug in one of the tools that, I wrote with Claude. And I was like, oh, hey, Claude, like, here's this bug. Also, like, here's a new type of episode that I'm going to make. So can you, like, put together some changes to incorporate that? And it was like, sure. And then I went on doing some other things. I checked back, like, 5 minutes later, and then boom, it was done. And then I compiled and ran it. And I was like, yep, this bug got fixed. And it wasn't, like, a hard fix to do. I read the code. I'm like, okay, I see exactly what you're doing. This makes complete sense to me. But it's still something that probably would take me, like, half an hour, realistically, to, like, sit down and do. And I got to spend that half an hour doing something else. But like now I have a tool that makes my life so much easier, right? So like before, I would like edit the episode in Final Cut Pro, and I put where all the chapters are. And because Final Cut Pro is annoying, there's no way to just export all of the chapters. But you can export XML for the whole project. But I was just like manually going through and like looking at the chapters, and then finding the timestamp, and then making a little text file, and then doing some like conversion of it. It was like a whole pain in the ass to do. It would take me like 15 or 20 minutes to get through all of the different steps. It was just kind of like exhausting to do. And now I just have a tool where it's like I export the episode out of Final Cut, and then I export the XML, and then I run two tools because I haven't put them together yet. But one like produces a chapter file, and the other just does the whole packaging of the podcast episode. So it'll like take the WAV file and run it through FFmpeg to produce the MP3s, and then it will embed all of the chapter metadata and all of the chapter artwork and all this. So just like do all of that all at once. And that used to be like a process that would take me like an hour or more to actually sit down and do all of that. And now it's just like a tool I run, and then it's just done. And I'm like, because I was very careful and like making sure that I named everything very consistently, it's very easy to programmatically find everything and run it. So it's like eventually I'll be able to do it where I just like have all the assets exported and I just run one command line tool, and then it just does all of the asset packaging and all of that. And that will save me like an hour or two on each episode getting it through post-production. And then I just have to do the same thing with like all of the social stuff. Like, and being able to build all of these tools makes it so that a process that would take several hours of my time to do is now something that takes basically none of my time to do.
Right.
Which means that I can go to other things instead of, having to sit down and do that stuff. And like, so it is like a superpower, but programming is not the only one of those. There's also like lots of them, and like people should get out there and like acquire these skills so they can do this stuff themselves instead of having to like deal with whatever somebody else came up with.
Agreed. Yeah, programming is definitely not the only way to do that. Although I do use it pretty often because a lot of our life is digital. So like the finances for the chocolate shop, like I wrote a program to like take all our bank statements and like load them in, because we don't have anything like auto syncing right now, because we're not like, why pay for something when we could do it for on our own.
Right. And it's not really that good. So
yeah. Well, yeah, the things you pay for kind of suck. And like, we're not high volume in the sense of like, we're not ordering inventory every single day like a big company would. We're ordering inventory very, very consistently, and like it's easy to do that by hand or with programming. So I wrote a program to take all those statements and load them into spreadsheets and whatnot. And it's like, it's great. And it's like, it saves me so much time versus if I ask my wife, like, hey, go through all of your statements and like, load them into a spreadsheet and do this. Like that would take her so long to do versus writing a program to do it. And like banks already give you CSV files or whatever. So it's basically just like loading it and then transforming it and putting it somewhere else, which is great.
Yeah,
but
banks
like,
make it easy.
Yeah. But those are like the little things you can do that you don't have to, I don't know, you've changed your workflow and your user interface so that you can operate more efficiently,
Exactly.
Yeah. And I like that. I don't know who's calling me right now. Someone called me, whatever. What if I'm going to screen them with Google Screen?
Oh God. Is that the one that like responds? I was like, hello. And like has a conversation with them?
Yeah. It's like, hey, the person you were trying to reach is a Google blah, blah, blah. What are you calling about? And then I see it like as text in front of me, and I can like respond. Yeah.
That's technology. Building those skills so you can build stuff yourself is real awesome. Like I also remember like one of my friends who was primarily a front end dev started doing iOS and like Mac OS and tvOS development, and he just started building all these little GUI applications, using Swift and whatnot for like common tasks the team would do. And like that was a case where like having a nice GUI application was nice, because then it's like, oh yeah, we used to have to do this with like some weird shell script or something. Now it's just like a menu button you can click, and it's like that stuff is also nice. Like one day I hope to be able to build GUI applications, but that's a whole other skill set. I have other skill sets I need to build first, but that's also the nice thing about like having Claude. Like there's so many different ways I hadn't thought about how this could actually be useful. To have these AI coding assistants, because so much of it was put in the like, oh, the thing will write the code for you. That was like the narrative that kept getting drummed over and over. The thing wrote the code. The thing wrote the code. I think one of the really cool things that it enables you to do is to just write the rough draft of something, so you can start. You don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to start from zero, because that's what held me from doing things a lot of the time. Is like having to sit down and write all of the bullshit boilerplate to get like a working application that isn't just stupid, right? We all start with the main.go, and you gotta like parse the OS args and then log shit and all that. But it's like, I don't know, if Claude can just generate that for me in 5 seconds, like why am I gonna take the time to write that stupid boilerplate.
Right. And then I know people are out there like, there's libraries for that, Kris. Just import this and import. It's
The
like, yeah, but
library is
then,
also fucking boilerplate. What do you like? Sometimes
well,
it's
yeah,
more.
yeah. But that's my thing. Like I was writing an integration for Oxide for Kubernetes, and like they brought in Cobra. And I think I said this on a previous episode,
yeah.
but they brought in Cobra just to have CLI arguments. And I'm like, bro,
There's a flags package.
os.args, baby. Like it's right there.
Yep.
It's just, I don't know. Yeah, that sort of below that is something I agree with, like Jared from Changelog about. You can use AI to create these small little tools or these small little things to improve your workflows better. And yeah, that's actually really useful. And you're right. Like why import a library that I'm now have to gonna depend about my way and get their, security fixes updated where I can just do it myself and have control of it.
Yeah.
And like it's great.
And I do feel like things like Cobra or like any of those like config helper libraries really are like a relic of a pre-coding assistant era. Because like the reason you didn't do that yourself wasn't because that code is hard to write. It's just fucking annoying to write.
Yeah.
But like if you're not writing it, like I remember at one point at a job I had, I literally ripped Cobra out because I was like, this thing, I think because I was using both Viper and Cobra, like because this combination, the amount of boilerplate we're writing is like hundreds of lines of boilerplate to do configuration. I ripped it out and wrote a config library and implemented it in fewer lines than the boilerplate. And I'm like, why do we have this dependency if I can implement everything we need in fewer lines? This doesn't make any sense. And I feel like in an era of coding assistants, like you definitely do not need to pull in some of these bigger libraries because you can just have it do it itself. Like it knows ANSI escape codes. You can even have it do pretty colorful output for you, right? It understands how to do a lot of this stuff. So we don't need a lot of these things that we used to use in the past that also just make the code so convoluted. I hate when I walk into a code base that has like the weird command thing that and dispatching and all of that. I'm like, how does this work? It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
To read code, because then you're like, okay, main.go. Oh, it's 5 lines of code to just call out to cmd.run or whatever. And then I got to go over there. I'm like, what's this thing doing? And it's like,
oh, it's like a func E or run E or whatever it is. It's like a struct with like a func run or whatever. Yeah. I know. They got to chase down what the actual, like, and then we wonder why software complexity has increased so much because we add wrapper on wrapper on wrapper, but like we don't need those wrappers. Really, the end of the day, all you wanted was os.args, baby.
Yeah.
Index 1, trim off 0 for the command name, and you wanted 1 and on. That's all you wanted. And you wrote 1,000 lines for it.
I will say there is something that is truly like hilarious that happened the other day. Like I have this, like one of the tools that I use for various reasons was like, I like switch into a branch that Claude had and then compile it and switch back to the master branch. So that all that was in this directory was just the compiled Go tool. And I was like, hey, there's a bug in this tool that's doing this. And I had forgotten that there was not the actual source code in the checkout. And like, there was running Claude code locally. And it was like, oh, like, here's the issue of why this is outputting. And I was reading and I was like, oh yeah, I inspected the Go binary and this is what indicates. But since there's no source code, I can't actually fix the problem. So I can write a Python or shell script for you that does the same thing and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what, you like read the compiled
strings,
binary and figured out where the bug I was telling you about is? I was like, sir, what? That's like even more unhinged than you using hexdump to analyze an MP3 file structure. And I'm like, what is this tool? And then I checked out the actual code. I was like, oops, sorry, here's the code. And it was like, oh yeah, here's the bug, and fixed it. And I was like, here's the patch. I was like, oh, thank you. But I was like, that is so unhinged, but it's like, that's one of the ways in which this is like a super senior level engineer. Cause like you could have some super senior level engineer that can just read decompiled Go binaries and understand what the hell is going on.
Yeah. I mean,
but like
you can strings it or object dump it or whatever, and you can get some stuff out of it. And like, it's just gnarly to read. You have to kind of like break it up and parse it a little bit better. But
Yeah.
an AI doesn't care. It's, an LLM
No,
is like, you know what? It's just tokens, baby. It's
just
tokens all the way down.
It's like, give me those tokens. It's like, I know how to read it. I know how to read machine code. I can look at the machine code and I can see what all these functions are doing because I'm an LLM and not a human. So I'm just like, oh my God, that is insane.
It is kind of unhinged. And that's why I think like I don't want to say the general libraries are dead, but like you really don't need to reach for libraries as often anymore. You have this AI LLM at your fingertips that you can use to generate a lot of this stuff now. So these sort of boilerplate saving libraries are really not useful as much as they used to be.
Right.
And that's kind of nice actually, because then you can make, sorry, again, keep dropping Legos. You can make purpose-built library functionality without having to like import some third-party library. And that's really cool. And
yeah.
I don't know, we haven't really been able to do that easily before. Everyone kind of just used, and this is no shade to like Cobra or whatever. This is just happens to be the one that we mentioned, but you don't really need to reach for Cobra or something like a Fiber or whatever framework, right? You don't need to reach for these things because you can kind of just build them on the fly for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool. Yeah, we haven't been able to do that thus far in software.
I feel like that's one of the advancements that I hadn't really thought of is like what AI is able to do is it's not like it just goes out there and it steals code base, like steals libraries and regurgitates them, right? No, it's like
right.
It can actually understand, like you can feed it a specification and then it can write code for you based on that specification, right? Like I think that's what it was doing with the MP3. Some of the MP3 stuff I was doing was with IDV3 tags. And it was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go like read the spec, which I looked at for 10 seconds, was like, I don't want to fucking read all this shit. I have better things to do with my time. But it like read it and then it was like implementing stuff based on that. And I'm sure if I was like, hey, just write a library, like don't use this other library off the shelf, just write a library that does this, it could have done that as well. So there are like a lot of things where it's like, yeah, no, like what libraries exist out there that are needed and used, I think is going to change over time. And it kind of needed to, because when you really think about it, unless like libraries are useful for like big things that need, like when someone's kind of offering you something that you need to do, like to connect to, like an SDK or something like that. But a whole lot of other libraries are just kind of like there because not everybody can write the code to implement the thing. But now we do have, like, everybody can have access to something that can write the code to implement the thing. So I think we're going to have a large reduction in the number of libraries that exist, which is actually a really good thing. In the same vein of like having the kind of basic debugging error codes questions on Stack Overflow was kind of cluttering up Stack Overflow, having fewer libraries that are just kind of like implementing something super straightforward is going to clean up the library ecosystem and reduce the surface area for security vulnerabilities at the end of the day, right? I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about Go, when it was like either copy the code or just write it yourself instead of depending on some or having some dependency. I think this is just like an extension of that idea, is that now you can just have something that can just write the pieces of the library you need, the exact pieces of the library you need, instead of pulling in this giant dependency that's probably going to do a whole bunch of other stuff to make it worthwhile maintaining this library.
For me, this has two very nice tangible benefits. One, like you said, the security implications of it and people not coming into like the Reddit thread or the Slack for the 10th time asking the annoying question. Sorry, I'm very mad about this. What framework should I use to build my web app? What project should I build? These silly little stupid questions. I don't know if you read my post in Go for Slack's general channel. Like, I'm just so tired of these low effort, crappy questions. What version of Go should I use? What web framework should I use? What, like, dude, that's not the right question you should be asking, first of all, because why are you asking me what you should do with your life? Like, you're going to ask me what you should eat for dinner? Come on, man. Go make your own decision. Number one. So that's that one area where this sort of AI tooling helps, because you can just go. You don't have to pick a library. Just go tell it to freaking write raw HTML handlers. You know what I mean? Like HTTP handlers. And the other side of this is, I think, or I hope, that not having to create these sort of ad hoc libraries that are kind of annoyingly useless in some ways, but also useful, will maybe give us the ability and the time back to work on the true libraries that matter, like you said, like the SDKs. You know,
Yeah.
we can go back and say, actually, I'm going to really polish up my SDK now because I no longer have to provide you some like config wrapper thing. Like you can do that. You know,
Yeah. It allows you to also, I guess that's another good point of like reducing the size of the libraries that we have down to just the thing. Like it just expose a real nice clean interface. And you don't have to bother with all this other stuff because all the other glue that you were trying to save your use around writing, now the coding assistant can just do that, write that glue instead.
Yep.
Yeah. No, this set of I've definitely come around on coding assistants. I still hate AI as a term.
You still hate what?
I still hate AI as a term. I like every time I say I'm like, I don't, this is not, it's too imprecise of a term for my liking.
Yeah.
I
our
feel
our channel internally is called LLM, not AI.
Yeah. So I feel like calling it like LLMs or like really coding assistants, I feel like is a good way of referring to these things.
Yeah.
Because that is basically what they're doing. They are assisting you in coding. In the same way that like a compiler is a coding assistant, right? It takes your nice high level language and it puts it into the gnarly, nasty machine code that you don't want to have to write yourself, right? And the same thing is true of this. It's taking your nice prose description and putting in that high level language, gnarly shit you don't want to write, right? So it's just like we have multiple layers. I think too, there was a time we were talking to Steve where I was like, pushing back a lot on the idea that these like coding assistants are like compilers. And I think I've definitely walked back a bit on that because I'm like, I see now much better how these things are like compilers. And how like they kind of fit into the same realm and same class. But this is what, life is about. Life is about growing and changing your fucking mind.
No, absolutely not, Chris. You committed to an opinion before you had all the information, and now I'm going to cancel you because of that opinion from last year or whatever months ago. And you just can't do anything about it. Yeah, no, you're not allowed. You cannot do anything about it. You are canceled. Okay. That's it.
No, you can't. You said it once. You can't change your mind.
You can't. Yeah, that's it. I don't. Humans change growth. No.
We'll take the basic biologist approach to things. I learned this in basic biology, so clearly that must be the one true way of the world. It's like that's. I was watching a TikTok once where someone tried to make a basic biology argument about, I don't know what it was about, probably sex or gender. And the person was just like, yeah, that was basic biology. Welcome to advanced biology. Sit down and let me give you a lesson. And I was like,
that's pretty funny. I like that one.
But it is true. People, they have initial opinions about things and then they refuse to change them. And I think that's really stupid. And then that's really silly. I think you should be very open and willing to change your opinions over time because that's literally what it means to be like a sane human. Like upon being given new information, you should reevaluate the information that you already possessed. If new information indicates that perhaps you should maybe change from disliking something to liking something, then take that for serious and don't have sunk cost fallacy about stuff, right? Sure, I spent a whole bunch of time not using LLMs and coding assistants because I thought they were silly and dumb. But at the end of the day, when I actually needed to start like writing a whole bunch of code, I was like, well, let me try this thing out. And it's like, okay, you know what? This fits in my workflow pretty well.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm also a person that is hilariously like I'm like the target audience for this sort of stuff too. Because it's like, I can write for days. I can sit down and just articulate exactly what I want to do in prose. And if I can just hand that to a machine to go write the code for me, or to at least write most of the code for me, then great. And like it does not work for complex projects. Like This is why vibe coding falls down a lot, is because you actually do need to understand what that code is doing at the end of the day. But like the problem for me was never understanding what the code was doing. It was always I don't want to fucking write it because there's so much nonsense involved in writing code. So, and now I don't have to. Now I can go back to being that staff plus engineer that can just be like, here, go write the code. I'll just review it. I can write the code that I actually want to write. But yeah.
We should probably end this because our listeners are gonna be like, "This is not break. This is a full episode." This is what happens when we sit down and talk about things.
Yeah, this happens when we start getting passionate about stuff in the world. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. We should end this break. We should break this break. We've reached the break of this break.
We should break this break. Oh yeah. What are we doing?
Ending the episode. So, viewer/listener, did you enjoy that conversation? I know I always ask you that. And so many of you don't tell us. So, I don't know, get on social media and tell us, or get in Slack, or go for Slack, or Zulip, or whatever, and tell us how you're feeling. But yeah, I think that's it for us for now. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you really enjoyed that episode. This episode of Break featured Kris Brandow and Matthew Sanabria. Break is a Fallthrough Media production and is produced by Kris Brandow, and our beats are by Breakmaster Cylinder. And scene.
Boom.